Hello, hello, everyone. So today I'm just coming back for the people that a Friday night is just difficult for to talk about the Scorpio new moon that happened yesterday. That energy is going to last not just a couple of days, but hi May. It's going to last a couple of months because what happens, especially with this Scorpio new moon, is that we have a lot of built tension already in the sky. And Scorpio can tend to move kind of quietly and under the surface, hence the iceberg comparisons. And, it's water and it's fixed. It's an iceberg. It's working. A lot of what you're seeing is happening under the surface. And also because the rulers of this new Scorpio moon are Mars and Pluto, which are currently in an epic, and I mean like Star Wars trilogy epic, finale opposition of 29 degrees of the cardinal signs of Cancer, Mars, and Pluto in Capricorn. Those are in their last throes of that opposition when the ruler of the new moon, when rulers of the new moon are in that, epic and both formidable opponents. It's not like it's a sweet little Venus Pisces against Pluto Capricorn. No, it's Cardinal Cancer Mars, which is a, F around and find out kind of placement. And so this transit is about power struggles, and it is it is ruling the new moon. So this new moon is a lot about making plans, gathering information, being the detective that Scorpio is, and then executing a little later, probably when that moon moves into crescent phase, or 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 maybe even first quarter. And what we can do, because I will be going live on Fridays from now on. If you're in membership, you probably saw the post that I had up, and there was a poll. Fridays and then Saturday afternoons about noon, I think, is working better for everybody. Uh, we're gonna have lives. The first Friday and Saturday of the month, those will be public. The rest of the month, those are going to be for different members' membership levels. So if you're gratitude or nerd level, you're getting access to all of them. And then if you are Astro, you're getting all but one. And if you're membership, you're getting two Saturdays, and evolutionary membership, you're getting 2 Saturdays and 2 Fridays. So next week, what I think I'm going to talk about is the moon phases. As we're talking about when we get a new moon or any kind of moon where we're gathering, we are assessing, we are sussing out things, because a new moon is the darkest. But when we talk about the phases, you would think, well, it was a crescent moon, right away. By the time I'm making this, it's out of the first quarter moon. There's the phases between the new moon now and the full moon, which will be in May. And so we'll talk about that next week when we get together, the phases and what those actually look like between a new moon and a full moon. Because that's really helpful for the community listening. If I'm saying, gather, get your information, understand, get a plan, and then execute during the crescent or the first quarter, you need to know where those are in between now and the full moon. And so we'll go over that next week. The bottom level of membership is, and that'll be for everybody in membership, not public, but if you're in membership. But the bottom level of membership is like $3. And then we'll go over the full moon the week after that. I'll look at the timing. If the full moon comes too close, then it's on the 15th. But I think we should be good. But either way, we'll do one or the other. But I mean, that full moon's going to be a doozy also, and it's going to be conjunct Uranus. So the full moon in Taurus. That's happening on the 15th. Good morning. Good morning, Tina and Mary and Flower Beauty. Yes, May. I moved it up a half an hour because I finally got the little mics in, so the sound is better. But there was a little bit more to set them up. I wasn't quite able to get there. So I hope everyone is well and happy Diwali. Absolutely. Let's talk about the themes of Scorpio, right? When we're looking at a new moon. And if you want to know how this is affecting your chart, I did a longer version yesterday that's all time-stamped that has each sign, but really what you want to look for is where you have 9 degrees and 35 minutes of Scorpio, because that's where this new moon is happening. So some of our lovelies born way up north, like Sweden, so we have quite a few lovelies from Sweden. Their houses are huge, and so nowhere where I suggest it could possibly be will it probably be. So you're just going to look for 9 degrees and 35 minutes of Scorpio in your chart, and whatever house that's in, that's the house you're going to listen to from the video yesterday. It is, deep, it's transformative, it's psychological, it's emotional, but it's emotionally still. It's a lot of processing. And it's also the detective. There can be a lot of gathering of information during this time, and really understanding what you need to do next in a situation that needs to be transformed. And again, when we talk about the rulers of the new moon in Scorpio being Mars and Pluto, and those being in an epic, face-off, in an opposition in the sky right now, right now is very reactive. It's a very reactive time. I don't know about any of you, but I've typed things and untyped them quite a bit in the last week or so. Because do I need to say that, or do I want to say that, or am I reacting? Cancer Mars is a reactive sign. It's active water. It's active emotion. And so if we are finding out information, and because Pluto, right, is one of the rulers of Scorpio, and Pluto tends to bring us, it's another placement or planet that tends to bring us very powerful truths. And also it could be a little bit of a lie detector, Pluto, depending on where it is in your natal chart. But when we have a new moon, when we have it activated in Scorpio, we could be looking at finding out information that feels transformational. And so what I'm suggesting is we don't react right away while we're in this opposition. November 3rd, Mars is going to move into, which is only one day more, till it moves into, sorry, I'm a dork if you don't know, hi, I'm Susie, welcome. If it moves into Leo for a little bit until it goes retrograde, and then November 18th, we have the transition, the ingress, depending on where you live, whether it's the 18th or the 19th, the ingress of Pluto into Aquarius. Never, ever, 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 as Taylor Swift says, getting back together with Pluto and Capricorn in our lifetime. 220 something years, yeah, they'll get back together. But right now, we're going to throw a big divorce party November 19th for Pluto and Capricorn to be divorcing. and it'll move into Aquarius. So even when there is an opposition again, once Mars is done with its retrograde, and in the first couple of degrees of Mars in Leo and Pluto in Aquarius, absolutely, there'll be an opposition, right? But it won't be cardinal, and it won't be at 29 degrees. Those two things make a big, huge difference. How that energy, how that opposition, how those planets are expressing in their face off, in their epic, right? It won't be the epic Star Wars trilogy finale, face off. I'm going to take a few questions before we get into anything else. Hi, Hannah. Okay. First house. Hi, Adva. So, again, we have the possibility that we could be getting information or go looking and be successful to find information in a subject matter that's going to be relative to your houses. In other words, where that Scorpio moon is showing up in your chart, and also how your planets are talking to this new moon. We have a person in our membership and in our community who's got this within less than a degree of their new moon. So some people are their natal moon. So for some people, this is going to hit a little differently depending. I will say that the extra added oomph to this is that we've had Neptune in retrograde in Pisces. It's currently at 27 degrees, I want to say. But Neptune in retrograde in Pisces has been very transparent for us. It's been telling on everyone, if you haven't noticed, in the news cycle. And it's been showing people, even people who really are careful to curate what they're thinking or feeling, and sometimes even people who don't know what they're feeling till it all of a sudden hits them like a ton of bricks, and then it's, they can even feel sucker punched by their own emotions. But that Neptune and Pisces in retrograde is like clearing the fog that Neptune can create. And in Pisces in its home sign, and it was at 29 degrees before it went retrograde, and it's going to go back to 29 degrees. But while it's in retrograde, it's very powerful and very transparent and very truth-telling. And then we have a Scorpio new moon with one of its rulers being Pluto, and Pluto is at 29 degrees in Capricorn, very powerful, and wants to retain that power by whatever means possible, and preferably the way we used to do things, right? The traditional. I'm not saying that if you're a Capricorn, you have no drive or ambition for progression. Of course you do. I'm saying in transit, not being one of your personal planets, but having that 29 degree Pluto is that struggle to keep the power. And so it's conflicting, right? But the Neptune at 27 degrees is also in a trine with Mars. So even though you would think the two planets that really kind of talk about truth and truth telling and truth bombing would be more in partnership with each other, the planet that it's getting along with very, very well is that Mars in Cancer. So things could feel like they're being revealed to you, and sometimes those things right now in this time could be things you don't want to know or and needed to know. So again, if you go looking for information, make sure it's to transform you, not to seek vengeance on somebody else. Because the wanting the power and the emotional reaction of cardinal Cancer might not reflect you well later on. It might not do you any credit if you react from either one of those. So I keep saying yesterday, and I'm saying today, just let the information come in and take the time to process it while the moon is dark. A new moon, the moon is at its darkest. The moon only gets its light from the sun. So when it's directly across from the sun, it's reflecting like a spotlight. That's why the moon looks full, is because the moon is in that phase and the sun is illuminating all of the things that the moon can give us. And then we are reflecting, right? But when it's in that new moon phase, the moon is dark. We should be reflecting quietly. This is a different kind of new moon, again, with the rulers in opposition. So there might be a pull to react and react strongly. So and I mean, Uranus is also kind of talking to Mars and Pluto currently. It's in a trine with Pluto, and it's in a sextile with Mars. We're not gonna bring that into this equation just because there's already a lot already. But there's where the sucker punch happens. There's where the disruption or the surprise can happen. Maybe this information comes in when you weren't expecting it and you weren't looking for it. And maybe you get a little crumb of something or a hint of something. The other thing about a new moon is it's highly, highly intuitive. And then compounded by the fact that it's in Scorpio, which is the psychic detective. It's extremely intuitive. You know what you know. I said what I said, right? Very Scorpio. When I talk about a new moon, I talk about like if you are in your kitchen at night and you don't want to turn on the lights just because you don't want to do that to your eyes. And it's completely dark, but you know it so well. You know your own kitchen so well. You know exactly where that countertop is. And you can navigate the entire kitchen in the dark, in the middle of the night, or your bathroom, right? And when the new moon is pleasant to your chart, maybe it's in another fixed sign, maybe it's in the same element, maybe it's your natal moon sign, it's going to feel more comfortable because you know it so well. It's like when you get the same moon sign in a solar return, like a helping hand, because you know it so well. It's home base to operate all the other stuff out of, right? But when we get a new moon that's dark in the middle of the night, and it's maybe in an opposite sign or an opposite or a different element or a different modality, then it's like operating in somebody else's kitchen when you're staying over and you don't know where everything is. And it feels a little bit more nerve-wracking because you don't want to knock anything over. You don't want to hit your hip on the countertop, right? You don't want to make too much noise. It feels, you feel a little less sure of yourself navigating that space in the dark. And the best way to deal with that is to really count on that intuition. Like, feel your way through it. That ability is in all of us to navigate in the dark, quite frankly. That's why we were given intuition. Same reason animals were given instinct. We have it too. We just ignore it because social constructs tell us to. I talked about Gavin de Becker, who was, I guess 20 years ago, 30 years ago, one of the foremost leading security experts in the world at the time, did security for the White House, trained people. And he was on a talk show where he said, Never ever ignore your instinct. As humans, especially as a polite society, and especially as women, we are taught, but men too, as a polite society, we are taught to be polite before we are instinctual, because that's what's socially acceptable. And he said, never, never do that. If someone's making you uncomfortable, if they're getting too close to your child, if they're getting too close to you, be rude. Leave the situation. Don't worry about how it looks. A mother in the wild will never worry if the other animals think she's rude if she's taking her young to safety or protecting them. Right? We all have that instinct. We're just kind of socially trained to be polite before we're safe. In a Scorpio new moon in the dark, that is when you want to pull on these instincts. And again, in a few days, take a few days to process anything that comes in. And if you get a crumb of information, if that instinct tells you, I just saw a little sliver of somebody that I haven't seen, or I just saw a little sliver of information that I'm being told is nothing, don't worry about it, and you feel like you need to follow it, I would follow it. I would also be prepared for whatever you find out next. It doesn't mean that for everyone it's going to be nefarious. But it could be transformative. And it could be very helpful to your life one way or the other. Because when we operate with more information, we're going to do better. We're going to do better for ourselves, first off, but we also normally do better for others. There are also 3 houses that this is taking place in, where you can ask questions of others, but only if you want to really hear what they have to say. Not defend it, just really take it in. And that's the 5th house, especially asking anyone who has adult children. If you have younger children, asking them how they feel about trust, how they decide who to trust and who not to trust, all of that. In your house where your partner is. New moons are a reset. You can reset a lot of relationships. The most important is with yourself, of course, but you can reset relationships in this. Asking people what you could do better, what they don't say because they want to be polite. That might strengthen the relationship if everybody had that information, Before we get into the houses, does anyone in the chat have any questions about this interesting new moon? Normally, like I said, the full moons are the truth tellers, right? They're the revealers. But with Neptune in retrograde and Pluto, which is just kind of, if you have Pluto on one of your angles, you already know. You're a human lie detector, or there are certain if you have Pluto near your 7th house cusp or in your 7th house, your partner's not lying to you. Right? And you think that's great. No one that I ever want to be in a committed contractual relationship could ever lie on me, right? But it's also the other side of that is that people lie, and it's hurtful to have that realization again and again, right? So strong Pluto natal placements can be really helpful in life, because you kind of know when you're a human lie detector in whatever house whatever angle that's coming in, or it's conjunct your Mercury, especially if it's conjunct Mercury in the 12th house. But you know, at the same time, or if you have Pluto, oh my God, Pluto and Neptune, I don't know that many people have that. I'd have to look at like the ephemeris and see when that would have even been possible, especially if Neptune is in retrograde. But this new moon, because it's the detective, and because of Pluto, and because of Neptune in retrograde talking to that Pluto Mars, it is a little fact-finding mission. It is a little truth-telling. Can it be about disturbing news? Can it be? It could be about any news. It could be as little as deconstructing, like having somebody say something to you that feels like, if you're very independent and you don't like people to help you, it could be because you were made to feel like you were a nuisance when you were young, when you should have just been taken care of, right? And so now, because you feel like that made you unlikable, now you could be overly independent, as a trauma response. Like finding out that information, that's a trauma response. Productivity, because if you're not productive, then what worth do you have as a person? That's a trauma response, right? So like that could land in your lap as a piece of information, and then you could go digging into your childhood to see like, why does that resonate with me? So, and that's kind of that's a more normal journey that a lot of adults go on. This energy could maybe bring that into your sphere. You could be scrolling somewhere and hear somebody say that and go, oh my God, that's me. You know, if you're on TikTok lately and all of a sudden they're like, hey, want to hear a symptom of Ehlers-Danlos or ADHD or low on the spectrum of autism? And you're like, wow, that sounds really familiar, right? I didn't have that on my bingo board today. But you know, at first we have a resistance sometimes to feeling and hearing the information with Mars as one of the rulers of the new moon in that power struggle with Pluto. We could feel a little resistance and reaction. But if we sit with it and go like, oh, there's actually nothing wrong with me. This is just part of who I am, right? And then we can unpack. Could it be disturbing? Could you find out somebody that you think is your friend is not your friend? And I don't mean like you get into a little tiff with somebody. I mean, I mean, you know, somebody at work is trying to sabotage you behind your back and you thought that they were your work friend. Yeah, that kind of energy can express in a new moon like that. That to me would be a little disturbing. There's all levels to different people. Disturbing means something different, but yes, it doesn't have to be though. It doesn't have to be. And May was saying it's in her first house, 2-degree conjunction with her ascendant, and 5 degrees with her Pluto. So this is going to be extra. This is going to be extra, like information just falling in your lap. And it doesn't have to be information about others. It could be information about yourself to help you understand yourself better, to help you understand why you do the things you do, how you react to people, why you put up with too much, why you tolerate, why you let things boil up and then explode like a tea kettle. You know, self-reflection. The moon is about self. And astrology is about, you know, the reflection of us, our personal planets, so and transits sometimes. So that's going to be, if that's in your first house and that's conjunct your ascendant, with a 5-degree the 5-degree conjunction with Pluto, yeah, it's not been fun. Mostly information about my own emotion. Yeah, I mean, Scorpio is the phoenix, right? So sometimes when we have a new moon like this, it could feel like we get information that makes us feel very reactive. It may be connected to a power struggle we've had with an authority or a thought. You can have a thought about yourself, who you are, what you bring to the table that needs to be deconstructed, that can be as powerful as another entity, as in a person or corporation that feels like it's in authority. You know, sometimes we let the negative thoughts we have about ourselves have as much authority over us as another person or entity. Hi, Jacqueline. So yeah, we can be discovering, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting information about other people. In some cases that will be the case, but a lot of times it's like, oh, I was not processing that. So one of the most important things about this new moon, and I said this a lot yesterday, is, you know, if you want to ask your kids, hey, how do you decide who to trust, who not? Like, how do you see trust as important? What are your childhood impressions of how you were taught to trust or not trust? Do you think that like social politeness or anything ever got in the way, where you felt like I should trust my gut, but I didn't because you were afraid that like, oh, that would be rude and that's not how I was brought up? Like, if you're going to ask those questions, and if they give an example of, well, when you did this, it made me think that, and then for the rest of my life, this, you know, behavior or perception felt a little detrimental to me, you have to be willing to sit and hear that and not tell them why they're wrong, that their experience was wrong, right? If you want to ask a partner how we can reset something, as long as you have that trust and that depth and that intimacy, because that's all going to be what you're looking at in partnerships right now. If you want to ask your partner those questions, you have to be willing to really hear and sit with those answers and not react. So you might want to have that conversation after the 3rd, but it's something to do as like an activity for this new moon, for sure. Hi, Odia. Yes, a new start. And it's a journey. I mean, Scorpio is a fixed sign. It wants long run journeys. It really does not like when it plans a long run journey and it doesn't work out that way. And although, you know, Scorpio really craves depth, intimacy, trust, those are necessary for like a really good relationship for a Scorpio. They also can obsess over people in the beginning and do what they have to do to procure that. They're very sexy, intense, intelligent people, right? So if they want to woo you, they can, right? And but sometimes it's the Scorpio who ends up and says, oh, this isn't what I got, was what somebody wanted me to see in the beginning, and now I'm here in this relationship that I fought for, that I might have burnt everything down as the phoenix to make room for this, and now I'm in it, and there's less trust, less intimacy, and less depth than I thought I was getting for all of that Phoenix energy, right? Hi, Anna Michelle. Hi, Doretha. Transit has been intense. Scorpio rising 7 degrees. Yeah. With Pluto. It can. So, you know, and so I never like to give anybody like, this is going to burn your life down and be transformative and you're going to find things out and you'll never be the same, because it's not going to be like that for everybody. But for some people it can be, but that, just know that on the when we talk about Scorpio and death and the phoenix, rebirth comes with the death. And if you already have a lot of Scorpio energy, you're probably like, oh, here we go again. This sucks, but I know that I will be different and better on the other side of it. I will be smarter, stronger, all of that. If you don't have any kind of energy that's like that, this can feel a little worse. Like I said, whether it's a new moon or whether it's having like any kind of lunation in your home moon sign, that's like when you have to get up in the middle of the night and be in your kitchen in the absolute dark. You can navigate just fine. You know that kitchen like the back of your hand. You know this energy like the back of your hand. For the people who don't, and it's more like waking up in a stranger's house and having to go to the bathroom or use the kitchen and not want to turn on lights, it can get a little ouchy when you're bumping into things and you're nervous on the inside. I'm speaking the truth. We're going to do on Fridays and Saturdays, and again, it's only going to be the first Friday and Saturday of the month that it'll be all public. The rest of it will be in membership, but the lowest level of membership is $3. But we're going to start talking about things like each sign and what it fully encompasses, and not the sign shaming, not just the sign slander for fun and views, not just like if you go on TikTok right now, the pop astrology is killing me. Everybody is building these platforms by just roasting the signs, and I'm like, but a lot of that isn't true, because if you're a Scorpio with a bunch of air energy, like if you have Scorpio and Gemini together, you're a totally different Scorpio than somebody who's like Scorpio and Cancer and Capricorn. Like those are very different energies. And so we're gonna talk about moon phases and houses and all. Like Fridays and Saturdays are going to be for astrology. Sundays will be for tarot. Pluto at 5 degrees, Scorpio conjunct South Node. Sun at 13. Yeah, I mean, with the South Node there too, if you're under the age of like 36, you're still probably dealing with like deconstructing some of the South Node stuff. And Pluto might, come in like a wrecking ball and be like, here's some hard truths so you can really deconstruct that South Node and about yourself and about the way, I talked about the Cancer rising reading. And for the new moon in Scorpio. And one of the things there is like it ends up in that 5th house where you can do a lot of inner child healing. But Cancer rising loves their mama. You can't tell me different. Like, and sometimes Cancer rising has a very strained relationship with mom. It's usually one or the other. There's not a whole lot of in between. Can be, but it's rare. But if you're one of the many Cancer risings who love their mom to like you will cut a bitch if they talk about your mama, then, it's a little harder to kind of then examine anything you have to examine in childhood, because it almost implies that she was not the amazing, lovely human that you're obsessed with, right? And so, I say to my kids all the time, like, there's stuff that I wish I had done different, or like I could be a different, more informed mom for the last one than I could for the older two. That just is what it is. It doesn't mean I love them different or I love the last one more. That's just where I was in my own journey, my own life, my own amount of information. Help me mom a little bit more. I mean, trauma informed for sure, but also, My older kids went through 2 breakups with their dad and then with my youngest dad. I feel guilty for that, right? So I can be aware that there's stuff there that they might have injury. But if I keep an open conversation and say, come hit me with how you think it affected you, or how not you think it affected, how you lived that experience, how that affects how you navigate daily life, and how can I be supportive now? Because I can't go back and change it, right? If I'm willing to open the door and have those conversations and hear, like, it pissed me off when you did this, ABCD, then we don't have to carry it with us, right? Then the injury is there, but the resentment doesn't need to be. So this Scorpio full moon, as new moon, as well as like being the detective, we can proactively think about as we're processing, right? And us older people may have parents that are either passed or would have come from a generation which it wasn't acceptable to say to mom, hey, you should have done this differently. This affected me in a bad way. That would have just been disrespect, blaspheme, not happening, right? So we know what it's like to process. But if we can help the next generation process without making them feel like that has to be a conversation without us, certainly they're entitled to have conversations without us, but if we can make ourselves part of the conversation, it's going to be better for them. Can't fix it. Sometimes we have to say things or share things not to be vindicated. But the more informed we all are with each other as human beings, the more it lightens each person. I'm not caring if I have, like, if I'm saying, hey, I wish I had done that different, right? Now I'm not carrying that with me anymore. That doesn't mean if I did something that really hurt somebody, they have to forgive me because I said, hey, I wish I had done this different. But I said it. They know that I feel that way. And it doesn't mean it has to make everything perfect. It can't be tied with expectations, which is why I think that we wait until this opposition is out of its exact opposition before we execute any of these things. But we can sit and make a plan. We can sit and write a letter. We can sit and think about what we need to process, and then in turn, like, oh gosh, I wonder how that person feels about this situation. Maybe I can give them an invite to process. Pluto is going into your 4th house with Aquarius, and you just found a leak with mold, and the entire house has to be remodeled, and we are fighting with the insurance to fix it. That fight will get easier once Pluto actually does move into Aquarius, because Aquarius is all about solutions. I'm so sorry about the mold. I'm going to tell you there's a lot of water in the sky right now, and it's going to continue to be that way until summer. When we have, and the Mars Neptune may have a lot to do with that, Anna Michelle, because that's a lot of unrestricted water. And if that happened around the Aries full moon in October, around, I want to say it was like October 17th, 18th, if that first happened around then, that would have been that Grand Cross in Cardinal with the trine in water, which would have just been unrestricted flow. But yeah, you're gonna have more solutions after November 18th. Well, okay, so it's a little off subject, but I'm going to answer this question because I opened the can of worms saying that, you know, uh, talking about Pluto. So Pluto is in your seventh house, and you feel like there's fighting already with your partner. There are other things that could be causing arguments. And don't forget that Pluto transforms also. That's why it's so scorpionic. And so look, if there is the depth and the trust in the intimacy besides love, um, then you can use it as a reset. You can use this new moon, and you can use the very long-term transit because it's going to be there for the next 20 years. And learning each other's communication styles. Woo! When whether that's siblings or couples, that's amazing to be able to look at somebody's chart and look at the way they communicate, and also maybe their early environment, even if they are siblings and they're like, well, we grew up in the same house. You experience your parents different. And your parents experience you all different. But it's really kind of amazing to see what can be accomplished once we really understand each other's communication styles, because then that's when people begin to heal when they feel heard. Cancer rising, mom is best friend. Yeah. Emily is not my Cancer rising child. She's a Gem rising. And she and I have, we spend it, it's that like millennial daughter. She's kind of zillennial. She's like on the cusp of, she's more Gen Z, but it's still that like, we go do stuff together. The other day I was going to like run errands. She's like, could you do that on a day off? When I have a day off, so that we could do that together, because I really like running errands, like or we watch, there's a lot of stuff we won't watch unless we watch it together. And we're forever penguin pebbling each other with TikToks and Instagrams and like constantly all day long. But if she and her older brother want to like make a joke about me, like my retirement home is going to be a set of stairs, that's going to be fine. You cannot make that joke in front of my youngest. He will cut you. Cancer rising kids, it's just a different level. I've got a good relationship. I'm so grateful with all three in the bonus, but the little one will cut you. He's not little anymore. Everybody thought that's going to change. He's going to outgrow that when he's not little. No. Trying to find the degrees of Aries in the first house. If you're Aries rising, then it's Aries. Pisces would be your 12th house. I can't pull up charts today, love, but you definitely an Aries rising. I know that you have the conjunction of Mars in Aries with something else right there. So, but you're a Gemini sun and a Leo moon, so I'm trying to remember what is conjunct your Mars. But that's at like 17 degrees. So, but you're definitely Aries rising. Aries is in your first house. If you become part of the membership, and I'm constantly looking at your chart, or if you're a frequent flyer for appointments, at some point I do like get the visual of somebody's chart. Sometimes I surprise myself how many people, like, I know their moon degree and their rising and their, besides their sun, obviously, is kind of the easy thing, right? No, what I said is, okay, so in the original video, I addressed this earlier today, but in the original video from last night where I go through in detail, I mean, that video, I want to say it's 2 hours and change just going through the houses. We went through in detail. If you are 0 to 9 degrees and 34 minutes of a rising sign, you should probably, depending on the sizes of your houses, where you were born, you should probably watch the sign before. So that's only for people who are the first 9 minutes and 9 degrees and 34 minutes. But also, you really should just be looking for where you have 9 degrees and 34 minutes of Scorpio, because that's where you're experiencing this, and because people are born with all different size houses, intercepted houses, you're just looking for the house that 9 degrees and 34 minutes falls in, and then watch that. I will actually adjust the timestamps. This conversation is very cathartic. I'm going to go and adjust the timestamps to not just say the rising sign, but the house that I'm talking about it in. So this way, that might be easier for people to find the house. Mars and Cancer crossing your ascendant right now. Mars is going to go retrograde. November 3rd, it moves into... November 3rd, it moves into July. It moves into Leo. And then as we get closer to December, it starts to station and slows down. By December 6th, we have Mars in retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo, and it's going to retrograde all the way back to 17 degrees of Cancer. And that's going to last, I mean, it's still in March going to be in Cancer. It doesn't come out of Cancer then for a very long time. So if you have, wherever you have 29 to 17 degrees of Cancer, whatever house you have that, you're going to have a long-term Mars, both direct and in retrograde transit. And if you have placements near 17 degrees of Cancer, it's going to, both in retrograde and direct, just be kind of sitting for a long time. On that placement, please leave me a comment. That can mean different things for different people. If your moon, your Saturn, if this is happening in your 6th house, if you can even grab a 15-minute or a half an hour while they're on sale, you will be probably happy later just to have that session, because as somebody who's had Mars retrograde, especially on my moon, you know, it's different if you have it on your Mercury, which I've experienced recently. It'll just get, things will get very, very busy. But if you, there are certain placements like having it through your 6th house or having it on your moon, like I said, especially if you're closer between 20 degrees and 16 degrees of Cancer, if you have a strong placement there, moon, Venus, if it's running through your 2nd house, that's another one, 2nd or 6th. But if that is close to your moon placement or your your Saturn, Venus, and Sun, just leave me a comment. I would like to be helpful on some level. And that's probably something coming up for membership that we'll do is I will take a look at personal charts for people who are having those placements if you're in membership. Probably do that towards the end of November. I can't believe it's November already. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions? Just a reminder too that I have that sale. I said I would leave it till Sunday morning because somebody asked me to make sure all their first of the month bills were paid so they could take advantage of the sale. And then I probably won't have one for a while. But I will be doing gift certificates around the holiday, like a sale on gift certificates around the holiday. But I like slashed my prices for the end of this eclipse season. And because we had it, you know, October and November, especially October, were the bumpiest of all of 2024. So I wanted to have like affordable support. Mars is sitting on your sun today. So it's going to revisit it. The people who are going to have probably the most life-affecting, unavoidable, environmental, again, unavoidable effects from the Mars retrograde are going to be the people who have like Moon, Sun, Saturn, Venus, Mars, between 20 and 16 degrees of Cancer, and people who have that one, you know, between 20 and 16, especially in their 6th or their 2nd house, but any of the Mars retrograde in their 6th or their 2nd house for different reasons. I promise I will do a live around the Mars retrograde, and leave me a comment, like, because I'm gonna do the first Saturday and the first Friday and Saturday of each month will be public lives like this. If you would rather that I go over the Mars retrograde for the next public one, I mean, I'm going to definitely do it for membership, and for there I will actually be able to look at people's charts because that's one of the benefits of membership. But when if you guys want me to just do a little video about it for public instead of, because I know like you can spit in any direction and find a new moon or a full moon video on a million channels. If you would prefer that I do something about the Mars retrograde, don't leave it in the chat because I won't see it. Again, leave it when the video is over and leave it as a comment. But that sale is running for another 24 hours. And I mean, when I say I slashed, there's like 40% off some of the appointments. Also almost half off, and there's like a really inexpensive 15-minute and 30-minute. Can I offer a class on how to find degrees in the chart as well as to read and combine one chart with another, such as like a synastry class? Yes. And also, I'm tight-lipped, but there's some things brewing, so I might be in 2025. I might be teaching a basics class, like a comprehensive one, but I could offer little mini classes for sure. Maybe I'll just like make those and make them like inexpensive to get through, you know, a very reasonable paywall, like, you know, $5 or $10 to just view like a mini class. Hi, Maricela. Thank you so much for timestamps. We don't need timestamps today. Today is just a discussion and a question and answer about the live, because there's no reason to regurgitate all the information again. All the details about the houses are in last night's video, and then I think that's what we'll do on the weekends, that first weekend of the month where we're doing public Friday and a public Saturday. We'll have the like kind of formal information on the Friday night and do a question and answer on Saturday. Yeah. Yeah, so like you'll I'm sure you'll feel you will feel the retrograde. I just want people that have between 20 and 16, for especially their moon, sun, Saturn, and Venus, or through the second or sixth house. I would like to, I mean, it's going to affect everybody, but those people, I would love to hear from you. And if you have those placements, you know, I can even work with a 15-minute appointment, but I would rather you have something and have a little heads up. I've been working quite a bit with people who have those placements and saying like, hey, is this guy? I guess. Because as Mars moved through Cancer originally, because right, it's at 29 degrees. So Mars has just been moving through Cancer since September. You might have gotten little previews of what you might be dealing with on a more detailed, longer, more pressing matter coming up December through March. Okie dokie. Well, I wanted to keep this one about an hour just as a question and answer. And I just started doing these again. So that's going to be whatever the first complete public visibility on a Friday. The Saturday will be question and answer. And if you can't make it on the Saturday, you can leave your questions. I looked before I went live. I didn't see a whole lot. There were comments, but there weren't really any questions on the last video. But I'm sure this will get a little busier as the weeks, as the months go by. And then the rest of the month, I will be here on Fridays and Saturdays. It's just that it will be for varying levels of membership. And there's a link for membership in the description box. But the first level is at $3. And I will check that later today to see if anybody joins. I know a couple of people upgraded yesterday. There's even like a Discord chat, so you guys can all hang out with each other, even when you're not hanging out in the chat, because this has become like Cheers, where everybody knows each other's name. Membership is fun. And even when the times when I wasn't feeling good and I was sick, I will send out like some kind of bonus, some kind of thank you. One time I even offered individual, I was really ill, and so I offered individual like 15-minute appointments, or if people were not able, like I want to make sure everybody gets their benefits. I'm a Virgo rising. Over-promising and under-delivering gives me anxiety that does not help my health. So, I love you. Now you love you. And thank you for joining me today. I will see members next Friday. We'll either be doing the full moon in Taurus, because that is a whopper, or we'll start going over the moon phases. If you are in membership or you're thinking of joining and you want to leave me a comment about what, like whether you want to see something on the houses or whether you want to see something on the individual signs, let me know. As I always say, I want to give you what you want. Tell me what you want, because I will do it. All right. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Leave me a comment. Subscribe if you haven't already. I love you. Know you love you. Bye.